All right, well, tomorrow. Yeah, we'll start it. Meander our way through the action items, I guess. Call order, school board meeting for May 18th. First order of business is the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, 1.2 is our mission statement. Ethan, you want to read this? All right. There it is.
Our mission is to graduate all students with high levels of academic and personal achievement, ready for post-secondary excellence, prepared with productive, passion, citizenship, research-based instruction, and collaborative system of support.
Thank you. Any changes or additions to the agenda? No, okay. Public forum. So individuals who are on site during this portion of the board meeting, members of the public are specifically invited to present items of commendation and or concern. At the discretion of the board chair, further public participation may be allowed as the time specific agenda items are under consideration by the board. Individuals viewing online, we post upcoming agendas to our website the Friday before regularly scheduled Monday school board meetings. This will allow time for public to comment prior to the board meeting. Please use the tab provided to share your comments for the school board to consider at the upcoming meeting. Personnel matters may not be discussed in public at a school board meeting. Members of the public who have personnel concerns or commendations should share them directly with the district superintendent. Does it look like we had any today?
Yeah.
None? Okay. On to action items. 4.1. Approve the May 4th board meeting minutes. Any comments, questions from anyone? On your motions?
I move to approve May 4th, 2026 board meeting minutes.
Then so moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3 yeses, 1.
Yeah, abstain, I wasn't here.
1 abstain, passes. 4.2, accept the enrollment report.
As you see for April 2025-26, we're sitting at 942, that's up 5 students from last year. And while we're down 8 students from the month of March, we're still holding fairly steady during this time of the year. So it's still good news as far as enrollment goes.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody have any questions on that? No, all your motions. Accept, approve the enrollment report. 42. Then moved. All those in favor? Aye. 4-0. 4.3, accept the financial report.
This is our report. Our report for the end of April. We received 3.7 million of our budgeted 3.8 million in property taxes for 25-26, and we received 41,000 in other tax related income. We received 8,300,000 of our anticipated 9,200,000 of the state school fund. We received 477,000 in interest from investments, 92,000 in curricular activities such as athletic fees and gate fees, 79,000 as our first of 2 payments for the common school fund, and 156,000 in other revenue for a total of 12,956,000. In our expenditures, our salaries and benefits, our salaries through January are 4.8 million, benefits are 2.6 million. We spent 1.3 million in purchase services, almost 600,000 in supplies, capital outlay, and other expenditures. We have transferred 2.33 million into our reserve accounts for insurance, equipment, maintenance, and building projects, instructional materials, and technology.
Thank you, Sherry. Any questions on the current financials? Anyone?
What's in?
Just a guess. All right, well, I'll hear motions.
Move to accept the financial report for April.
And so moved, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. 4.4, approved personnel reports.
So this month we've got four hires, licensed hires being brought forward to you. This will be for the 26-27 school year. First one is Leah Williams for physical education and health. And Leah's secondary physical education and health position based on her strong instructional practice, commitment to student engagement, and demonstrated success working with middle school students. Ms. Williams is completing her Bachelor of Science in Education at Bridgman University with endorsements in physical education and health, and has been serving the Pleasant Hill School District since the beginning of the current school year in a temporary teaching capacity. In her current role teaching middle school physical education and health, she has established a structured, supportive learning environment, building strong relationships with students, staff, and families, and she has demonstrated effective classroom management, adaptability in meeting diverse student needs, and a commitment to fostering lifelong health and fitness habits. Her ability to step into the role this year and provide consistency for students while continuing to grow professionally makes her a strong candidate for permanent employment. Also recommending tonight Taylor Renke, and Taylor's for secondary math. We recommend hiring of Taylor for the secondary math position based on his extensive instruction experience, strong content knowledge, and proven ability to support student growth across a wide range of mathematics courses. Taylor holds a Bachelor of Science in Math and a Master of Education and brings over a decade of experience teaching secondary mathematics, including advanced coursework such as AP Calculus. Equally important, Mr. Rinke joined Pleasant Hill School District during the 25-26 school year to fill a mid-year resignation, and in that role, he quickly established strong relationships with students and staff, maintained instructional continuity, and demonstrated a high level of professionalism and adaptability. His experience to inform instruction, participating in PLCs, and supporting the multi-tiered systems of support aligns with different priorities. The successful transition to our system mid-year and his depth of experience make him a strong candidate for permanent employment. Third is Doug Paquette, physical education, recommending the hiring of Doug Paquette for the physical education position based on his extensive teaching experience, deep content knowledge, and long-standing success working with secondary students. Mr. Paquette holds a professional teaching license with physical education endorsement and has nearly 3 decades of teaching experience in physical education at both middle and high school levels, and most recently at Thurston High School. Throughout his career, he has demonstrated consistent ability to build positive relationships with students, maintain high expectations, create engaging skill-based physical education programs. His experience across grade levels combined with the knowledge of curriculum development and student engagement brings significant strength and stability to our program. We're excited to welcome Mr. Paquette to Pleasant Hill. And lastly is the school psychologist, and recommending Hadley Borensky to the school psychologist position based on her strong preparation, relevant internship experience, and commitment to supporting students' academic, behavioral, and social emotional development. Ms. Borensky is completing her education specialist degree in school psychology at the University of Oregon and is currently serving as a school psychology intern with Springfield Public Schools. In her internship, she has conducted comprehensive psychoeducational evaluations, supported IEP development, collaborated with multidisciplinary teams, and worked closely with students, staff, and families to implement evidence-based interventions. Her training and experience align well with the needs of our district, particularly in strengthening student support systems. I'm pleased to recommend her as a fully licensed school psychologist for the upcoming school year, bringing valuable expertise to our student services team. I'll say with Hadley's position, remember from last year, we hired an intern ourselves. That intern is getting licensed, but he's decided to move back home. So that created the opening for a full-time position that Hadley is stepping into. So it's recommended tonight the board of directors approve the personnel action for licensed employees as reflected in this resolution and in the addendum presents to along with this category, this resolution and category to the either licensed hires.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions from anyone on any of these?
Just wanted to wait for the budget meeting probably, but are all four of those positions included in the budget?
They are, yes. Yeah.
All right, I'll hear motions.
All those who approve the personnel report?
Then so moved, all those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 4-0. All right, well, we got most of the budget committee here, and most of the board. So I guess that's not bad. With that, we'll recess our regular board meeting and call to order the 2026-27 budget committee meeting. So good evening. With that, I'd like to thank you all for being here. Thanks again, budget committee members, for serving. I know it's super fun and exciting, so appreciate that. First order of business is to elect a budget committee chair for the 2026-2027 budget process. So at this time, we'll open it up for nominations for the budget call that Alan's gonna be.
Yeah, so can I time this perfectly?
Sure, yeah, do it.
I'd like to nominate Madeline Carlson.
I would like to shout that I was the only one of these jokers that was here for the. That's why you're so well suited. Right? I already know the stuff they're recapping you. Okay.
So you sound very qualified and I would reiterate my motion that you be the chair.
It's been nominated. Are there any, so, all those in favor of electing Madeline as
Oh,
our,
that's serious.
like, a fair person? Aye.
I guess.
Madeline, are you voting? Or are you voting no?
Hi.
Oh, you can vote yourself.
I'll just go with it.
So perfect.
All over. Down the church. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome.
There's the button.
Green it makes it easier for people online.
Oh, gotcha.
That's very quick thing.
Thanks, everyone, for voting me chair. It's great. Super happy about that. We'll now move to agenda item 2.2, election of a vice chair for the budget committee. I will now open nominations for vice chair. And I'd like to nominate Rich Street. Any additional nominations? No additional nominations.
No.
All right, I'm hearing none, so nominations are closed. I will entertain a motion to elect Rich as vice chair.
Well, I move to elect Rich as vice chair to the budget committee.
I'll second that motion. The motion carries. Oh, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries and Rich is elected as vice chair of the budget committee. Thank you, Rich.
So
Okay. Now, we will move to agenda item 3, 2026-2027 budget message. At this time, I'd like to invite Superintendent Jim Christ to present the budget message and provide an overview of the district's budget priorities, assumptions, and planning considerations for the upcoming fiscal year.
Thank you. So in your budget documents, starting on page 3, the large document. We've got a message for this year. It is a little bit of a lengthy one, but there was quite a bit of work that, went into this year's, budget document. So this hopefully will detail, almost all of it for you. So, dear members of the Pleasant Hill School District community, I'm pleased to present the proposed budget for the 26-27 fiscal year for Pleasant Hill School District. This budget reflects our continued commitment to student achievement, safe and functional schools, and responsible stewardship of public resources. It has been developed through a conservative planning lens that balances present needs with long-range financial stability. The proposed budget recognizes a period of increasing operational costs, natural growth in salary and benefit obligations, changing federal policy signals, and uncertainty surrounding future state school fund growth as Oregon concludes the second year of its current biennium and begins planning for the next. In response, the district has built a budget focused on stability, safe and functional facilities, and strategic alignment with district priorities. Pleasant Hill School District relies primarily on the state school fund, local property taxes, common school fund revenue, and targeted state and federal grants such as high school success, student investment account, IDEA, and title programs. While the current year revenues remain stable, districts across Oregon are closely monitoring several emerging pressures, such as slowing growth in state school fund resources entering the next biennium, increased competition for state dollars across public services, potential shifts in federal education policy and grant priorities, enrollment sensitivity tied to statewide demographic trends, and continued inflationary pressures on transportation, utilities, insurance, and contracted services. These conditions reinforce the importance of conservative budgeting and maintaining healthy reserves. This next section is a little bit new, but that was some conversation I've had with folks as well. And it's just titled Financial Guardrails and Reserve Protection. Pleasant Hill School District uses the financial guardrail framework to guide budget decisions and protect long-term stability. These guardrails help determine when temporary use of reserves may be appropriate and when structural adjustments are necessary. You see on the next page here, that's just a general, I guess, guideline. So if the level, if our conditions were stable school funds, or we were having perhaps a minor decline, and our ending fund balance is above 20%, we can see that as being manageable, and there are normal adjustments and limited one-time smoothing would be our typical response. If we saw pressures where our reserve declines towards 17 and 20%, we view that as cautionary. We bring forward for board review, temporary reserve use could be used, and then targeted reductions would be made. And significant revenue decline in reserves below 17% would that be considered a structural risk, and we could expect structural expenditure reductions using our ending fund balance and program staffing reviews. The proposed 26-27 budget remains above the district's minimum reserve target, allowing Pleasant Hill to manage short-term pressures while preserving future flexibility. The district's budget strategy extends beyond a single fiscal year. Long-range planning includes multi-year staffing alignment, so reviewing enrollment, program demands, and staffing ratios annually to align personnel costs and student needs. Using ending fund balance strategically for one-time needs or transition years, not sustain ongoing structural deficits. Preparing for potential reductions in federal and state grant money by gradually right-sizing positions and identifying sustainable funding sources. Coordinating capital improvement through reserve funds and long-range maintenance planning rather than overburdening the general fund. Balancing competitive compensation with long-term affordability as collective bargaining benefit costs should evolve. And one of the most significant components of this 26-27 budget is the district's investment in licensed staff. The district recently approved a new collective bargaining agreement with Pleasant Hill Education Association covering the 2026 to 2029 contract period. The agreement framework reflects the district's commitment to recruiting and retaining high-quality educators while maintaining long-term fiscal sustainability. Like many districts across Oregon, Pleasant Hill continues to operate within a competitive labor market for licensed professionals. The agreement includes adjustments to the salary schedule and recruitment and retention incentives designed to support workforce stability and maintain competitiveness with peer districts. Investments in compensation represent a significant portion of the district's expenditures, and careful planning ensures that these commitments remain aligned with projected revenues and the district's long-term financial guardrails. By prioritizing investment in our licensed staff, the district continues to support instructional excellence and maintain stability in our classrooms. Moving on to facilities and maintenance planning, in addition to investing in our people, the district continues to prioritize the maintenance and improvement of district facilities. Safe, well-maintained buildings are essential to creating environments where students and staff can learn and work effectively. The district's facilities and maintenance planning focuses on addressing deferred maintenance needs, maintaining existing infrastructure, and ensuring that facilities continue to support evolving instructional programs. Through long-range planning and thoughtful investment, the district strives to protect its physical assets while supporting safe and functional learning environments for students and staff. As part of the district's ongoing strategic objectives, the 26-27 budget also reflects a continued focus on strengthening student support systems. The district is evaluating the addition of an educational assistant within the secondary system to assist with academic intervention services. This position would support targeted instructional interventions for students who need additional academic assistance while allowing teachers to focus on differentiated instruction within the classroom. This investment reflects the district's commitment to ensuring that students receive timely support and the instructional staff have the tools necessary to meet diverse learning needs. While the district continues to make targeted investments aligned with their strategic objectives, several financial pressures must also be carefully managed. A number of state and federal grants that support student programs, including High School Success, Student Investment Account, IDEA, and title programs, have experienced reductions or increased cost pressures in recent years. These programs frequently support staffing and student services. When grant allocations decline or fail to keep pace with increasing salary and benefit obligations, districts must determine how to maintain these services while responsibly managing general fund expenditures. For the 26-27 fiscal year, the district will continue to utilize available grant resources, such as the High School Success and Student Investment Account, to support student programs up to the point that those funds are fully expended before shifting remaining costs to the general fund. Additionally, declining allocations within title and IDEA programs, combined with increasing salary and benefit obligations, will require the district to transition portions of the staffing previously supported the grants into the general fund in order to maintain program continuity for students. At the same time, the district continues to carefully manage staffing levels through natural attrition and thoughtful reassignment of responsibilities. For example, the district will not replace a .17 PE license position funded through the general fund as the associated work can be absorbed within existing staffing structures. Similarly, the district plans to restructure a student support staffing at the middle school by transitioning a portion of the 9th grade student success position into a middle school counselor position that was previously funded through the general fund. This position has historically been supported through a combination of grant funding and general fund resources, and this adjustment allows the district to maintain student support services while limiting growth in general fund staffing expenditures. These adjustments reflect the district's ongoing efforts to maintain program stability while responsibly managing available resources. Due to these pressures and strategic investments, the proposed 26-27 budget reflects planned expenditures that exceeds annual revenue, requiring the district to utilize a portion of its ending fund balance to maintain program stability in the short term. The district's conservative financial practices and strong reserves allows Pleasant Hill School District to responsibly manage these temporary imbalances while protecting programs and services for students. Through careful prioritization and strategic use of attrition, the district will continue to identify opportunities to align staffing levels with student needs while assuring that district resources are used thoughtfully and responsibly. These efforts are not intended to suggest that the district is overstaffed, rather they reflect our commitment to being a good steward of public resources while continuing to protect the educational opportunities available to our students. Looking ahead, the 26-27 budget reflects a continued commitment to balancing fiscal responsibility with meaningful investments in our students, staff, and facilities. Through thoughtful planning and responsible stewardship, Pleasant Hill School District remains well positioned to continue serving our community while navigating the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. I'd like to extend my sincere appreciation to the members of the Budget Committee for their service to the district and the community. I also want to thank our staff, families, and community members for their ongoing support of Pleasant Hill School District and the students we serve. Together, we remain committed to providing a high-quality educational experience that prepares every student for future success.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, we'll move on to the budget document overview and presentation. I would like to now invite Business Manager Sherry Longbongo to provide the budget document overview, the budget presentation for the proposed 26-27 budget.
All right, so we will review the proposed budget, we'll hear and consider public comment, discuss and make changes to the proposed budget if needed. The next steps will be to approve the budget, approve an amount or rate of total ad valorem taxes to be certified by the county assessor, and then forward the approved budget to the school board for additional public hearing and adoption. Budget committee considerations. Our board mission, district policy, and district equity lens, the statutory requirement to approve a balanced budget, the value of a sustainable budget where ongoing obligations are supported by ongoing resources, the impact of budget decisions on the district's bond rating and ability to meet cash flow needs. This is our proposed overview of all funds. The general fund is actually down by 1.6 million. Our special revenue funds increased by 50,000. Our debt service fund increased by 45,000. So overall, we are all funds combined is down by 1.5 million. Work. Sorry. General fund staffing. We have made some adjustments and they're a little muddy because of the partial positions that we had to move out of special funds and into general fund, because we're seeing overall slight drops in our funding. So, our license has gone down by 0.75. That is actually one position in the general fund, but we've added in 0.25 from special funds, so the net change is a drop of 0.75 FTE. Classified and confidential, we have a drop of 0.35. Part of that is a drop in district office staff and a little bit of increase across the other classified and confidential positions. Managerial stays the same. Administrative also stayed the same, yet a position that was partially funded through IDEA is now totally funded in general fund. So it looks like an increase, but it's only a general fund increase. Total staff is expected to be 94.22 FTE for next year. We are projecting 975 students for next year, which is a gain of 13 over last year. This is our financial projection updated from what we gave you a few weeks ago. This is our expectation of our end of 26 funding. So our total resources, we expect to be 22,321,000. That does include our beginning fund balance. The actual budget was 22,750,000, so that is a drop in 428,000 in resources. Half of that was the difference between the actual beginning fund balance and what we budgeted for our beginning fund balance. Once the auditors come in, they adjust that number. Our requirements, the budget was 22,750,000. We are projecting 22,321,000, so 400,000 less than budgeted is our expectation for the end of this year. For our 26-27 budget, our general fund overview, we're expecting a beginning fund balance of 6.5 million. Total revenues of 14.5 million. Total expenditures of 14.9 million. transfers of 2,345,000. And our contingency of 299,000. That's 2% of our operating expenses. We're expecting our unappropriated ending fund balance to be 3.4 million. That does put our ending fund balance at 23.7%. So the difference between this budget and last budget is 13.5% in ending fund balance. This is the breakdown of our resources. We're expecting the state school fund to be 96 million. Property taxes a little over 4 million. Beginning fund balance 6.5. Interest on investments 450,000. Other income at 348. That's on page 20 of the large budget. Our expenditures by major function is, we expect to spend 8 million on instruction, 6.5 on support services, 2.3 in transfers, and we have 299,000 in contingency with an ending balance of 3.4 million. This is our requirements by object. It breaks it down a little more into where we're actually spending the general fund dollars. Salaries are 7.1 million. Payroll costs are 4 million. Purchase services 2.6. Supplies and materials 590,000. Capital outlay 270,000. And transfers and reserves combined for 6 million. The supply budgets include per pupil allocations given to the school funds to distribute. The transfers represent moving resources from the general fund to reserves where expenditures are made for specific purposes and we have special requirements for those. This is the changes between the 25-26 budget and the 26-27 budget. Salaries are up 6.1%. That's step movement, cost of living increase for eligible staff, and the new CBA for license. Payroll costs are at 44,000. Benefit costs increase for additional salary and step increases. The addition of paid leave for new benefit and increased substitute costs. Our purchase services are down 150,000. So we do have an increase in student transportation costs. We have an increase in heating and cooling costs. We have a decrease resulting from the hiring of speech therapists and the cancellation of the online speech therapy services. And we have a decrease in high cost student placements as some students age out of the system. If you remember last year, we were budgeting our speech therapist and our psychologist kind of in both places because we really wanted to hire, but we weren't sure if we had to do it through professional services. So this year, since we have speech therapists in place, we no longer have anything in services for that. We did this year put money in services for this psychologist because at the time of the budget we didn't have one, but we do have one now. We actually understand in that particular category. Supplies and materials about 42,000. Our other objects are up 19,000. That's mostly property and liability insurance. Our transfers are down 250,000. We're still investing in our future with some major building improvements and building projects. It's important to note that the seismic rehabilitation on the high school gym is supported through a grant that will reimburse the district's costs up to 2.4 million, ending in the 2026-27 fiscal year. So we still have money in those reserves that we need to spend, but it is going to be reimbursed to us. Our contingency is up $7,800, and that's just because the overall operating expenditures are up, and that's 2%. Our unappropriated ending fund balance is down 1.8 million. It's still at 23%, which is, the Government Finance Officers Association recommendation is 2 months operation expenditures held in reserve. With our spending model, that level is considered to be 20%, so we are still above that. In our other funds, special revenue funds, start on page 57, they are restricted for specific purposes. Grants, student activity funds, reserve funds, preschool, and food service operations. In our special revenue, we expect to spend 3 million in instruction, 2.6 in support services, 866,000 in enterprise and community services, and 2.4 million in facilities. This is our debt service fund. Property taxes were budgeted to be 1.6 million in 25-26, and in 26-27, we expect them to be 1.6 million, so it's higher by 25,000. We have some interest earnings, we have some beginning fund balance. So we are expecting this year, we have to pay 1.67 million, we're allowed to keep 125,000 in ending fund balance. So our requirement for this fund is 1.795 million. Which is an increase of 45,000 over last year. This is our levy. So that last year it was at 1.7 million, this year 1.75, and this year we 1.79. We have some resources that will carry over, so before current year taxes. Property taxes needed to balance would be 1.65. We expect uncollected taxes of 81,000. So our estimated tax levy is 1.732. But because the assessed value in the area has increased, our actual debt service tax rate has gone down by almost 6 cents per thousand. So our new rate will be 1.8982. This is our financial forecast for the 25 through 27 years. The projected 25-26 revenues are 13.7 million. The 26-27, we're projecting 14.5. Total expenditures, we expect to be 13.5 for 25-26. 26-27 proposed does look like a bigger jump than we expect, because when you're looking at the projected for 25-26, it no longer includes that contingency spending, because we do not project to use our contingency. And it is included in the 26-27 proposed, so it's increasing by about 300,000. Yeah, 15 million has that 300,000 in it. So we're expecting a deficit, if you include that contingency, of 738,000. So if we're doing a 10-year contingency, we're looking at 299,000 less, but then we have 150,000 we're not going to spend on psychological service contract. So that's going to reduce that amount too. At this point, the projected ending fund balance was 3.4 million, and that's at 23.7%. This is a comparison between our adopted 25-26 budget and our proposed 26-27 budget. You can see the differences in the contingency in the revenues expected. You have lowered the transfers to reserves. The nutrition services fund transfer is a little different than the others, and then we don't make those transfers unless needed. So as long as the food service is supporting itself, we don't have to make any transfer. The funding for that has been a little bit up in the air because that program for supporting school lunches has been in flux, and the state program has made up some of that difference for this year, so we don't expect any transfer this year. We won't know till the end, but we don't expect that. And next year, we're putting money in there in case we need it, but we very likely need not. That there's a comparison of our beginning fund balance, a transfer of reserves, and then what we expect. So the income balance we expect at the end of this budget should be 3.4 million. In summary, this budget reflects a stability-focused, conservative financial plan designed to balance current needs with long-term sustainability. Built in response to a tightening fiscal environment, including slowing state school fund growth, inflationary pressures, and uncertainty in federal funding. At its core, it prioritizes key components: fiscal stability guardrails. The district continues to operate within a defined financial guardrail system to guide decision making and protect reserves. The budget remains above the minimum reserve threshold, allowing for temporary use of ending fund balance to maintain programs without creating structural imbalance. Strategic investment in people and programs. A major component of budget is investment in licensed staff through a collective bargaining agreement, reinforcing the district's commitment to teacher quality and retention as a primary driver of student achievement. Additionally, target student support investments, such as adding an educational assistant at the secondary level, focus on strengthening intervention systems while controlling overall district costs. Managing structural programs while maintaining programs. The district is responding to declining or unstable grant funding as titled IDEA, SIA, and high school success. By gradually shifting some positions to the general fund, using grant funding first before backfilling local funds, and managing staffing through attrition and reassignment. These strategies allow the district to maintain program continuity while limiting long-term financial risk. A long-range plan focus is explicitly tied to a multi-year strategy that includes aligning staffing with enrollment trends, reducing dependency on unstable grant funding, maintaining facilities to plan investments rather than reactive spending, and balancing compensation growth with sustainable revenue projections. Thank you for your engagement and support, and we are going to questions in a minute. This is just our schedule. So June 1st, we can have a second budget committee meeting if needed. June 8th, we could have the third committee meeting if needed. On June 15th, the budget hearing and board meeting will take place. And this is our contact information. And I'd like to open it up for questions.
Thank you. So yeah, at this time, we'll open the floor to budget committee members for questions, clarifications, requests. Related to the proposed budget document and presentation.
I know you're Well, one, I just want to say thank you for the time and effort you put into this. It's always helpful the way you lay it out. And probably having done this, not as long as some, but for a couple of years now, certainly appreciate the way that you budget to try to realistically reflect what could happen. And then seeing a pattern where we don't spend money just because it's there, because next year it'll be easier to go get it again. Having said that, I mean, you addressed it a little bit, but maybe I could ask again, you're asking for a budget that runs a deficit, and I understand there's approximately 300,000, if I understood you correctly, of reserve in that, there's some additional fund, that's not gonna be the final number, and I get that. At the same time, on behalf of, the people that we're representing, it is tough to say, yep, that's great, reserve funds were 8.5 million a couple years ago, you're asking to do 3.5. Reserve down from 40 plus to, which was admittedly highly conservative, and we don't want to be penalized for that, but now we're at 23. 20 is sort of the suggested minimum, if you will. And you've laid out some, but I mean, to be frank and save some of the line item conversation if we can. That puts us and potentially the board in a little bit more of a tough spot. Final comment before I'd like to hear your response. I was looking through this and I love AI because it just helps you find stuff. And I said, hey, what do you, go through this, what do you see? Staffing costs. One of the first things I mentioned, we now have permanently higher staffing costs, which is great in the sense that we're reimbursing our educators more competitively. But we also are approaching, if we do that too well, we may find ourselves in a situation similar to Springfield, G, whoever, where there isn't this long-term plan to readjust staffing, it's now, it's Jim who's gonna go, because people are gonna go, there's no money. So, and that's a big question, but I guess pick from whatever you want, and maybe make some comments and direct some thoughts if you will, and then I'll follow up, or maybe some of the others, or if we have more specific questions. Is that a fair question?
Yeah, they're great questions. Remind me if I don't get wrong, we don't get. One thing I want to say about the 20% GFOA, that as a rule is quite high. It is our minimum. Most schools are running 10 and happy to have it be 10.
Yeah.
So 20 is part of our conservative habit where, and we've been quite a bit higher than that. So that's the answer, I mean, that's just an explanation of how we look at that 20%. I will say that, it is always interesting to run an deficit budget. We do have things in there that we don't intend to spend, but we need to be able to spend. I think, we can take that 150 off for the psychological services, so that it just feel good that that happened. The other thing is, in this budget, there were some one-time costs to our license that we won't see next year, that we had to put some additional things in there to get that contract signed, and they are not gonna continue on every year, so that'll be something that we will see leveling out, we expect. What else do we have?
Yeah, in terms of the, collective bargaining agreements and staffing, we did make some structural changes to our collective bargaining agreement, with this last contract as well, specifically in the step increases. And so the way that our, collective bargaining agreements are working is we've got 4 columns that are based off the education for our licensed, and our licensed employees. So it starts with a bachelor's degree, if we did a master's, and it shows 45. But there's 4 columns, and then each step is awarded a percent increase as well. And ours was actually pretty high if you look at the other districts in the area, not probably the highest. And so depending on where you were at in that bargaining agreement, you were going to generally receive a step increase of 4.23, 4.25, 4.75%, just pure experience, not any sort of COLA on top of that. In comparison to other districts like ours, we do sit right in the middle of the road. And other districts I'm talking about is districts in our area, the Delaware Valley, similar size districts as far as student enrollments. Our benefits and salary is right in the middle of the road.
The other thing I'm going to address is the reserve, transfers to reserve. We're doing another large, the 2.3 million is pretty large for us. And we're moving that money into reserves, and we have to pay as we go on this large gym project, but that all comes back to us. So next year, that beginning fund balance of our reserves will be quite a bit higher, and I would anticipate quite a bit less being transferred over. Because it's gonna come back into that and be used later. So it still is a nice financial spot to be in, but it will be, we won't be in as much a deficit when we don't transfer so much into it.
So do I understand what you just said, that if, this is a hypothetical question, 27, 28, you would expect to receive an influx and then therefore reserve fund increase approximately equal to the reimbursement of the seismic?
The
Or you're saying-
seismic will be reimbursed within the 26-27 year. So we had a budget to spend this money, but it's gonna come back in, so it's just a weird way to have budget, so we have to be able to spend it, even though it's not actually going to be an expense to us. So at the end of this year, that account will have a higher budget than it will need. And so at that point, we either kind of freeze transfers into that for the next few years, or we have board action to move that into another reserve account that maybe we need it in structural returns, or maybe we need it in technology. And so, you can't just move those things around without some budget action, but it will be weird that we basically 2.4 million, up to 2.4 million will be reimbursed to us into that account.
That was one of my questions, for 2.4 is not included in this budget anywhere. That money coming back to us.
It is. It's included in the transfer in and then in the expenditure out of that 200 again, it's the 200 fund. It's 284. Or 285. And so you'll see it, in. It's 285. So you'll see that $2.2 million is proposed to be spent in this year. And it's on page 132.
Right.
And then if you look on page 88, you'll see the transfers and the resources of 2.2 million as well. And that's because a few $100,000 have already been spent. We started this project last year. We're continuing it this year. The big push will be starting in July.
So the actual reimbursement is in there, that's what I'm asking.
Not in a clear way. No. I mean, it is showing, the interfund transfer, and it's gonna be shown at the end of the year through an ending fund balance.
Right, so theoretically, if we get reimbursed for the whole amount, 2.4 million higher, is that correct?
It'll be about 2 million,
For 2 million
as
higher?
we've already gotten a few hundred.
Okay.
Okay, on this number, can I to clarify, is essentially what I'm understanding is instead of increasing the appropriations for the grant by $2 million, we anticipating to receive that revenue. We're staying within the appropriations or transferring the 2 million from the general fund into the reserve. So we are not anticipating or appropriating the revenue that we're anticipating from the state. So to Drew's point, which is correct, we are not appropriating the idea that we are actually going to receive the revenue from this grant.
Correct, the revenue is listed as the interfund transfer, so that will be an additional revenue throughout the year. So we'll probably see it in projections as we get further into that.
Okay. So theoretically, everything happened exactly like it is in this layout right here, if we got reimbursed, then the fund balance at the end of next year would be 5.4 million. Is that accurate or not?
It won't be a general fund ending fund balance because it will be in
Sure.
the reserves.
But that could also, through our action, be transferred to different theoretically, if we can.
So transfers are overlapping.
Right.
But we can't go back to the general fund. Or
It can go back to the general fund, but it needs to be used in a way that's consistent with the way it was transferred.
So I wonder, maybe you've answered it and I'm just slow, but, if I'm looking at this and I'm seeing a trajectory, and I'm looking at that trajectory at the ending fund balance, that's not a good trajectory. It's gone from 8 to 63. And so my question was, well, when we're not looking at the 27, 28 budget, but if we did, and that trajectory continued, then we would have an ending fund balance of 0. If that trajectory continued. So what I think I've heard you say is, well, actually, it's not quite that way, it's because the $2 million that we're talking about getting reimbursed as the year goes on, doesn't go back into our ending fund balance, so we magically have $5 million. But we have $2 million somewhere else that we're not going to have to spend next year's ending fund balance on. So the trajectory likely levels out. We'd love to see it go up, but it's not likely to go down.
Right, and our anticipation would be, and we talked about in those guardrails, is if our trajectory was not going the right way, if we were not keeping over 20% in our ending fund balance, then we would be making
Yeah.
cuts.
I get that part, and I appreciate that, but. So when you go from 40 to 30 to 20, the 20 is the target, but if you're gonna race right by it, nobody cares.
Yeah, I think looking at it very simplistically, because it's really difficult to project that far ahead. If we are on average saying putting $2 million into reserves in the last couple of years. Because we've moved 2 million in, we're gonna spend it and be reimbursed. It'd be highly unlikely you're gonna see us come next year and ask for another $2 million to reserves.
That's all right.
But again, it's difficult to project that far ahead as well.
Jim, quick note on that too. Thank you for, I've asked multiple times and here is listed. Here's what we need to do in the future for our buildings. Here's even some prices. That makes it a lot easier than instead of speaking hypotheticals, at least that today's prices have a picture. So thank you for that. If others find that helpful, it might be something we can include, you know, as it makes sense in workflow. Moving forward, be able to see what's coming. So thank you for doing that.
And I did want to finish the thought on the collective bargaining agreements. And Sherry mentioned like some one-time expenses in this year. So there's some incentives built in also to the collective bargaining agreement to change some of the structures. And the structural changes with the step increases I was talking about between 4.25 and 4 3/4 is we reduce those to a flat 4%. In order to do that, we end up compressing our salary schedule. And so to maintain the 4% COLA that we bargained in, there's some incentives in there for the cells that got compressed to be able to make those whole for the teachers through this next collective bargaining agreement. So that's the one-time expense that she's talking about.
And the last one I had, just off the top of my head, I'm curious what others saw as well, but, enrollment is projected to increase, which is obviously mission critical because of the trajectory we have and understanding, if I understand it correctly, our state reimbursements simplistically put per kid. And so for a student in the school system, why did it increase? And as we're looking ahead as well, in an environment that's constrained already, best guess, maybe this is a total guess. How reliable is this increase given what's happening at the state level? I read something like 35,000 less students than there was in 2021, maybe something like that.
I don't see the transfers into district are a big part of that, because we project forward we go forward our grades. We kind of do a projection of kindergarten, the biggest thing that we just don't know when we're budgeting. Then we look, because by the time I'm budgeting, we already have a list of students who want to come into the district. And it's good, it's enough to make us, and we're only counting a portion of those in order to come at the number that we gave, so that's still a conservative number. We have space for more than we allowed for, and we have enough people on that list that I don't even think we'll be taking all of them, because we have some classes, some grades that are maxed out. So I think our reputation and the way we handle business has made this a popular district, and that's really good news in a time when lots of districts are losing students. We don't seem to be.
So on that same note, there's like a cap, and it's based on student to teacher ratio, that's where you stop allowing transfers in.
At the,
It's based off of our projections that we go forward, and then some historical parameters that's, I don't know. They've been, I think, carried down through board over the years. And so at the elementary level, we looked at 25 per grade level from first grade to fifth. So 75 total for each grade level, 60 as the kindergarten level. And then once we get to seventh grade, we're looking at 75, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, 75 per, 85 I believe. And then high school, it's really difficult to do it by grade level, so
Yeah.
generally cap it at 85.
And we try to cap that school at under 350.
And then you said you don't take as many transfers to really get you to that cap spot.
So we use our January numbers and the December numbers, to make the projections. And so say for instance, we have a fourth grade class that has got 76, or a third grade class that's got 76 in it. So we're going to roll that up for for next year. And so we expect to have 76 in our fourth grade class. Since we got it at 75, we will accept, boundary waivers, but we won't approve it until we get into the next school year to see what that actual number is. If it drops below 75, then we start taking. If we have a grade level that's at 70, then we say we've got 5 open spots. For that grade level.
Can you talk about supplement versus supplant in regards to federal funding? So that we have an understanding of when title funds are going down, what you're kind of moving out, the impacts that that can have.
Well, we didn't reduce staff in any of those cases. We moved some to general fund, so title fund used to support 1 teacher and 2 EAs. This current year, it got dropped down to a part of 2 EAs and a teacher. Next year, it will be 1 teacher and part of 1 EA. So we kept the same staff, but we moved them to general. And IDA is going, and we had a 20% cut at the end of the year. To the left, and that's mostly special ed, EAs, almost all of that. Currently, it's only paying for part of them. And so, we're not really, we can't, we're kind of supplanting into our general fund, which they like, I guess. Trouble for that, but we're keeping the same service.
On the same note as staffing, I'm curious about the middle school counselor combination with the 9th grade and student success position. Is that kind of how things have been operating for the last, however long it's been that we haven't had a counselor? Is that like working well, or is that a position that's gonna end up being overworked?
It has been for almost the entire year, in that strategy. It's one of the areas I would, I would never call it overstaffing. It's one of the areas I think that was really easy to combine into a single position, that fills up a position. We've been effective and we do that for the year. Part of this is also understanding that our strategic objectives is to build some systems in order to be able to make the work, more streamlined, and better responsive to use of data, which then goes along with our assessment system that we provide, that we purchase as well. And so having the systems in place, systems is, as simple as, a teacher making, assistant with a student, being able to fill out a form, bring the team together, look at the student data, and each of them with the supports with needs. So we're doing a better job of operating the systems in place, which makes us, more strategic, we can do more with less as well. Yeah.
Have there been any districts that have not granted the release to a student for a boundary waiver?
Not in some time, we do get, gosh, might have been during the recession, last time, 2008. Even then, we get to do the open enrollment period, which we're in right now. And then if anything, we sometimes shift to a 1-to-1. So if we have a student that wants to go, say, out to Springfield, and they have a student that wants to come in, we'll do a 1-to-1 transfer.
Springfield has had a limit on how many students they'll release. And I think it's to us, I think it's been 60. And they don't meet that limit. That has been a stated limit a few years ago when it has students.
Are they gonna change it?
We have not heard that.
I would say there's nothing on the horizon right now pointing to them changing it. Not that they won't in the future, but I think that there's so much uncertainty that they're going through right now that is one of the last things that they're thinking about.
I heard, exciting reports from spies on the ground that there were some pretty impressive electronic whiteboards that were being done with the high school. Are you asking for money for that and a deficit budget?
I don't think so, but I know. It really is a good question. Our technology. Oh, we're not super. There's.
I think what you're seeing is with Trevor Shields, our technology director,
Close it, yeah.
is becoming
You can.
more and more involved in instruction, not just the infrastructure. And so he's working with staff on instructional needs that can be used, such as electronic devices like that. And so he will actually work with vendors, they will provide that. He's got teachers that are trying those out right now. I think part of the conservative nature of our budget as well is we do have deep reserves. In which if teachers want something, we are able to provide it to them. Sherry often says we very seldom say no. We might ask a lot of questions about what they're gonna use it for, but very seldom say no.
Could you understand the perspective that in a deficit budget year, that's a hard statement to take without a lot of explanation or experience behind? If I walked in and said, you know, my student Drew is, he's a kid who just needs live sports, and I'd like you to provide that, and they're like, great, let's do it. I understand that was a big exaggeration, but in something like bigger ticket items, again, the trust factor, we don't wanna go through these little things, because it just curbs your ability to do your job well, but at the same time, as an example, that's one I'll park on, if I may be so bold on behalf of everybody. There's no way they're cheap. I'm glad they demoed them, but if that's the kind of stuff that's in there, maybe we need more time to go through and look, cause that would raise a question in my mind about, man, if somebody walked in and they said, oh my gosh, look at this amazing thing, that's awesome, yeah. We were able to get those for the students, this is great. Oh, the budget's running at a deficit, who's on that board? I'd be curious, so maybe you could humor me and help me.
Yeah, they
understand.
are not on the budget. Our technology director has submitted a budget, a detailed budget to me as to what devices he thinks we need to replace and what we have in it that is not gone.
And do you feel comfortable with the level, the balance between getting in deep on those things and showing freedom to the professionals we hire to be astute enough to know when we're spending money that's a good use and when it's not, understanding how differently everybody manages their finances?
Yeah, and I appreciate that question, because it really does cause us to stay grounded in the conversations that we have every single day. And I think our administrators should speak to this as well, about the amount of oversight and scrutiny that we place on the spending within our district, to the point of, I think chairs that I'm sitting in right now took us about 1.5 years to get. It took some convincing of Sherry to not buy used ones. We have a ton of oversight in that conservative type of spending. We've got a strategic document as well that we really work to stay aligned to. What I appreciate about Trevor, that I just don't want to squash, is that ability to go out and to work with staff on new technology, giving them the opportunity to do it, wanting to be able to spark that creative piece within the classroom with a teacher and a student, but also be fiscally responsible for it. And make sure that the objectives that we told the community that we're gonna work to meet in our plan.
One of the things, I think, because of our size, the reason we're able to underspend these budgets year after year is that, basically every purchase order comes past my desk. I have an accounts payable person who's a deal seeker, and she's not gonna just, I'm two on Amazon, so you can get this for cheaper over here, so, you know, and so it's like, it's always, we wanna give everybody what they need, but we wanna get the best deal on getting it, so we don't say no a lot, but we will often tweak things a little so they're a better deal, and I think when we do that across the board, and because we're small enough to really manage it, we're not handing out blank checks to anybody, we really just, underspending is our mantra, but we wanna.
I mean, you guys have such a great job for long range facility plan. What about a technology refresh strategy?
You know, that's that is in here. He, rotates through what kind of things that we still need to do. We have so many devices per year that he budgets out and gets. Like this year, he had underspent his budget some, and then there was a real jump in technology costs. I think it was the RAM that went way up. And so he's like, if I can get 50 right now, it'll be $100 less. Okay, let's get that. So everybody kind of had that mindset. And so we ended up jumping ahead on budget a little bit, but getting a little good deals with the class. So he keeps things refreshed in here, his style.
How are we gonna break down? What adoptions do you have in the?
Curriculum adoptions are completely up to date, just approved the last ones, which will get us in alignment as well. This next year will actually be a cheaper years, as far as it's, PE is one of the adoptions, I think second language. But we
For
are
27, yeah.
Yeah, but we're completely up to date with our curriculum adoptions. There's not a lot of school districts that can say that.
Remind me on the revenue forecast, it's still just that, right? We're still don't know for sure what they're sending.
Correct, there's a ton of moving parts in all of it, so when they send us a forecast, or they send us an estimate, and I think we got only one this year, 26, 27, and it was in March. And so we take it and we adapt it to our, we change the FTE if we think it's right, or if we think it's not right, and so we adjust it to get a pretty good number, and we've been close, been able to be pretty.
When you say close, you mean what you have to get.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that the estimates have been, based on our FTE, based on transportation. Some of the things that you never really can predict are like common school fund, you never know what that's gonna be, small school. Higher cost disability, and they're all. They're very hard to predict, but because they're relatively small for us, it doesn't matter so much. I mean, it might be off 10,000 in overall. Good question. I was just gonna say, any more questions?
Oh, if we're gonna try to move forward, good. Okay, that's from my mic. I guess I'll just say from one lens, for what it's worth, it's not easy to be somebody who pushes back, especially when I think there's a tremendous amount of responsibility and fiscal prudence that has been shown. Even, and I appreciate your examples, by the way, of the difference between, you know, for lack of a better term, pick on the federal government, we need 10 reams of paper. Well, I know, I'll go get us one bid. And it's $353,000 in 10 reams of paper, and we get, so I appreciate that example. Having said that, it's tough to see, I think, maybe some of the same trajectories that Rusty alluded to, that some of which have been explained in the sense that although these funds will come out of general reserves and therefore you can't just put that money back in, we have to show a decline. It's still tough, for me to just, you know, for what it's worth to say, yeah, we should do this. It's also tough to say sharpen the pencil, because if you sharpen the pencil, you're taking the money from, or we're taking your ability to have the freedom to make the decision in the future, which is really the way I have understood the budget. I've eventually understood the budget to be here. We don't just spend it because it's there, but we ask for the opportunity to be able to, and I really appreciate that. Having said that, it is tough to see the declines in the numbers and have sort of a general confidence that state revenues come through or our enrollment does indeed stay high. And as a layperson, without a very good understanding of just how tight that margin is, or how conservative we're truly being, it's also hard to look at the 20, acknowledging that it's, you know, we're creating our own problem by being so conservative, because if we had set it at 8%, we're at 20, this is great. But it's still hard to, a lot more trepidation this year and saying, yeah, I think this is something we should do. Part of me wants to ask and say, hey, what would it look like if we ran it neutral? Or how close could we get to neutral? But I also understand that exercise opens a lot of can of worms and takes hours away from, you know, the district office and Sherry, especially doing work that I'm not sure where that would go. So I'd be curious, I guess, at this point, if I don't wanna create momentum, but if there's other thoughts, that's a good use of time. You know, maybe that's something, it's certainly not one I wanna push, I wanna offer that as a thought and have more than that at this point, because if it's more of a minority thought, then I don't think it's worth our time to park on it, but that's just my honest impression, based on what I'm seeing, is I appreciate that things are slowing down at the same time. It didn't, as a layperson, it doesn't feel like we back off enough, and it's really, really hard to see red numbers and go, yeah, let's just do it, because that precedent is tough for me, so. If I manage to convey that clearly, that's kind of my honest thought for what I've seen going through it.
Yeah, I just comment, I think the pieces that Sherry's mentioned as far as the contingency fund that we just generally don't need, and that's, again, I said, there's not some sort of surprise waiting around the corner for us, but we've got plenty in our reserve funds to be able to handle almost anything that's thrown our way. It does get us down to, almost an even budget. The hiring of the school psychologist, you know, we went into this again, we were both budgeting for the payroll costs of that and also budgeting for the services cost for that. And when we just didn't able to hire somebody that's approved tonight, we won't be spending in one area. We're really close, I think, to an even budget. And that's part of the work that Sherry does as far as, you know, give us your plan where she can really have a great idea of what our new fund balance is gonna be and what goes into every single line item. With it, I think on top of that is, we've done, I think, a lot of work as far as identifying areas of attrition that we are not filling positions, we're actually combining positions. At the same time, our collective bargaining agreement that that was, I think it was well needed, that was a 4% COLA over the next 3 years, each year for the next 3 years, which kept us in the middle of the pack. To do so, which was really important to, for recruitment and retaining of our teachers, inviting them.
So I'm looking at this, what I'm seeing is I'm taking transfers off. That's just like, it stays within, we're just moving it around. So I'm really looking at the real deficit of what I see is the 738,000, but I'm taking 300 off of that too. So then I'm really only looking at 430,000. So when I look at that 430,000, then my question would be, is that 430 representative of the new CBA that was just signed? Or is there something else that I should be asking of what is that 430 really representing on going over?
I think of that 430, we could remove another 150,000, which was the.
Psychology services. Yeah. Another thing, if you look on page 25 of the printed off, in the adopted budget forecast, it still has, in the 425-26, it still has the contingency in there of 290,000. And that's affecting the ending fund balance on that column. So our anticipation, it would be pretty shocking if we didn't need to hit that contingency fund this year, the next month and a half. And so that 291 is gonna automatically roll down into that ending fund balance. So out of that negative 700,000 this year, you can kind of pull off another 290. It's like, I know it's weird that this stuff is so mobile, but it really is. So I mean, the overall deficit, I think, is not going to be there where it looks like it is.
So to Rich's question, is it worth the time to look at this as net? And my feeling based on that is, while I understand where Rich is coming from, and I support that. I think we can draw the lines that it's gonna be that.
Say that again, what?
Is that Rich would wanna look at this, what is a net neutral budget? And what I see when I'm looking at this budget is though it looks in the red, it's actually it's actually net neutral. And I'm looking at it from the lens of this, which is, I'm only looking at the 738. I am taking out the 300,000 of the contingency for this year. So I'm getting down to 430, taking out 150 for the purchasing services for the psychological, so that gets me down to what, 300,000 roughly. And then I'm factoring in that the contingency for this current year is not gonna be hit, so that's then gonna be an additional 300,000. That's gonna be in the beginning fund balance for this coming year of 27, therefore. Net zero.
Yeah, except that you're spending reserves to do it. Because they were extra reserve this year, but you asked a really good question though, because you mentioned a 4% COLA, Jim. CBA, the second CBA is coming out of reserves. To me, that's a big red flag. Because now we're creating a permanently unsustainable staffing cost, if I understood kind of where you're going with that, maybe. Is that a concern?
It's not, because what we've done when we restructured, the salary schedule is we've reduced those 4.25% step increases to a flat 4%. And when you look at that over the entire salary schedule, we will see an investment. It's hard to estimate because you don't know how staff is going to go in and out from year to year. But I would estimate it's, I think we talked about definitely by year 9, we start to see, the return on the investment. And I think that the changes we're committed to right now is it worth it to go through it? I would say, I don't know what else, but there are always things that we could go and find. I believe that we have done the work necessary to get us to a net budget when we actually get to that point, to be able to cover the costs in this first year of that collective bargaining agreement, essentially the incentives that are took to reduce the overall growth of the salary schedule. And we gotta say with some of the salary schedules that just they are, there's just kind of a little bit of a mantra they have with the current bargaining session that we went through is what we're seeing around the area is agreements to bargaining agreements, I guess, by school districts that are just not, they're not sustainable. They can't pay for them. And it's, we're without getting too clear, we're in government turtle race right now, and it's, we can start in the middle as far as a political, kind of fight for dollars. I'd say I kind of prefaced this in the very beginning with the budget message being lengthy. There was a lot of detail that went into this budget to see that we could head off some of those incentives that we knew that we provided to the teachers. And we were able to get a contract signed that again kept us in the middle. Those districts in our area and our size.
All right, any other questions from the committee? If not, we will move to agenda item 6, this is public input. At this time, members of the public may provide comments related to the proposed 2026 to 2027 budget. If there's anyone in the room who wants to ask some questions, please state your name for the record for speaking. All right. All right. Yes. So we're ready to approve the budget. We need more time. Do we?
Are we ready to make a motion?
That would move to agenda item 7. If there is one, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the 2026-2027 budget document and approve the tax rate and amount of taxes to be imposed.
They did provide 2 sample motions if they were ready to make an approve tonight. So we could take a motion to approve tonight. Otherwise, we did have more questions, we get more detail as far as, information that Sherry and I can provide. We have future dates coming in on the agenda, maybe on to meet as well.
Did you guys have, your, you guys, do you have any questions? Comments?
I don't have any questions, I'll make a comment. I'm concerned about the trend. And, yeah, I think Rich's comments have been spot on. And, you know, it is a difficult position to say, sharpen your pencil when you still have money to spend. And maybe it's crisis that creates the sharpened pencil. There's a lot of shell game that goes on with the budget between transfers and this, that, and the other thing. And it's really hard to get a good idea of what the deficit spending truly is. But the ending fund balance is a pretty good indication when 1 year goes from 8 million down to 5 million. You know, that is a pretty significant drop in a year. Well,
Yeah, I would understand on that. I agree that it is concerning. I kind of wonder, and maybe it's in this big beautiful book you have here. But to look at just the 2 years, right? To look at last year and look at this year. I would love to see, it's, in my opinion, something definitely like keep an eye on, right? The trend is not great, but maybe in future budget meetings, in future years and things like that, we could see a larger scale, multiple years, you know, 5 years awesome would be like 10 years, you know, being able to see exactly how things are moving. That can give a little more comfort, I would think, to me at least, to know, but yeah, I also share the same concern, it's not a great trend, but I'm more leaning on the side of like, keep an eye on it for next year, and it sounds like we're in a lot better position than a lot of districts. Correct?
Well, and the conservative spin on the budget is that we're almost underestimating revenues, we're overestimating expenditures. And when you say sharpen pencil, I could probably go in and take some percentages off those expenditures and still be fine. Because we don't tighten them down. I mean, it's not like we're gonna hope we get every single penny in and then spend all of it out. It's really, there's room in both sides to keep that balance.
Do you have a comment on the trajectory of the ending fund balance? Because that is I think that's I'm not resolved enough to probably be in a position where I would move forward, but that doesn't mean we can't take maybe 5 minutes now and prevent 2 more hours later. So we've gone from, it was increasing up to, so all budgets are on the, not all budgets, quite a few budgets are on the website, and you can go back and look, and I didn't look at 10 years, but I looked at, I don't know, a bunch. And so there was trajectory upward, and then however many years or whatever years ago, we hit that eight and change maybe-ish, high water mark, and then it's just been moved down. And so when we talk about like a balanced budget, some of that has been pre-allocated, is that fair to call it that? Or we've been aware that we're building reserves, maybe is a better way to say it, to account for some things. That's $5 million.
I think,
And maybe you have a comment on that.
I will say that it was somewhat artificially, inflated. And I mean, the intention really was never for it to be at 40+%. And it really was, how we used ESSER funds was really the big thing, and all that influx. And instead of just spending it out, we basically put it in reserves, and we've been working on it, and that 20%, was more the balance. It was 20% when I started. And then it really jumped with ESSER again. So now it's kind of getting back to where like, it doesn't scare me to see 23% in balance. That's really above what our goal was forever. And we were just really lucky to be above that for so long. I think that we did a lot of investing in that. We built the library, we put money into the field. And so we've spent it in good ways that are gonna be more, that were one-time expenses. And I think that, wanting it, I mean, kind of to have it, I didn't know it was excessive.
I think some of the answer to that question is on page 24 of the budget. It shows the ending fund balance since 2023-24 school year, how it's gone down, and to the commensurate fashion, I think it's the interfund transfers, which being we were funding capital projects, a lot of one-time expenses. And I think from what I heard you guys say is next year, interfund transfers are gonna be way down because we're getting reimbursed $2 million, which is gonna be essentially that amount. So we wouldn't expect the ending fund balance to go down much next year to making it that stuff, and maybe even stay flat or go either direction a little bit. That's what I heard anyways.
That is exactly how I would project it to work out next year at this time, yeah. And I would, I guess just include, so we have attempted over the last couple of years to actually start to get that ending fund balance down. Because it is a tremendous amount of money that is sitting out there. With the idea we've got students that are moving through our system right now, with the idea that we should be spending money on the students that are coming through our system. And I'll say it out loud. It is difficult to get into a bargaining situation as well with your staff members when you're sitting on such a large piece of cash. Yeah.
Well, I'm thankful that on behalf of Springfield and Eugene and all the other districts that didn't do what we did, that we maintained a difficult bargaining agreement, because as far as I know, we haven't played any good comp. So I hear that, but I'm trying to balance that as well with just thoughts for future. Anyway, I believe my thoughts clear.
Yeah, that's a great testament to our staff. As far as, you know, a lot of those folks, work, some of their kids here, and they see the value of, earning a wage, you know, for their work and being respected for their work. They also understand that the work that you guys put into this and make sure that's reinvested back into their programs and their facilities.
So if we go back to the idea of the balanced budget, obviously the only true options on the table would be to ask first for the transfers to go away. So then the question becomes, what transfers would you want to see them pull out? And then at that same time, how much, what does that look like? And then expanding even more is just sustainability. Is when I look at an ending fund balance, one-time funding. So when you operate a school district, 90% of every dollar in the general fund is the staff. So you have to balance that of what you're trying to do. So to Jim's point, as the resident person that understands laying off and a fund balance of 8% versus a fund balance of 20, and how you go from a fund balance of 65% 2 years ago to almost 12% now, and have to lay off $46 million, which is 225 FTE. You get there when you think your fund balance is in replenish. So here for the game, but it's what does it go to that isn't necessarily tied to permanent staffing. What does that look?
Comments or thoughts, Stephen?
So I think some of the comments that were made were some of the things I was gonna say. So the various times where I was waiting for a moment, but by the time I had a chance to speak, the comment already been made, so I don't need to repeat what's been said, just to state my needs.
I said, to John's point, we are, very fortunate to have the reserves that we have in our district.
At the superintendent level, I don't sense you fear or trepidation at all over what some of us walked into the room. I walked into the room with fear and trepidation, looking at this decrease of the $5 million we used to have, and now we don't. I've gotten a lot more comfortable with that now since you've got angst over that all.
No, because we're sitting, I mean, there's over $2 million in reserve funds. I know 2 million of that is a seismic grant that's going to be reimbursed back into that account. I don't foresee needing reserve accounts going up again next year, but we'll see what the banking brings as far as the legislation this next year. We're also in the second year of the biennium. I think everybody in the second year of the biennium tends to kind of squeeze a little tighter.
That if I understood the drill that John took us down with actual deficits then for operating the school. Not capital projects, not some of the stuff that we have been fortunate to be able to do, but the real life, what's it cost to run this place? When you take into consideration the contingencies, you take into consideration some of the things you've mentioned, we're not gonna have to spend, we thought we would, we're not. And we think about when we're sitting here next year, going with the same drill. And we decide that that ending fund balance is gonna change any. Our best guess is we can operate at a balanced budget, at the operational level. Is what I hear you saying.
Correct. Yeah, and some of those, it's the conversations that we are having in here, so I these conversations are great to go have and continue to remind us, and again, I kind of look at our administrators, because they live this, and I know Chris and I both coming from Springfield, we lived it regularly, but when Sherry shuts the budget down, so that she knows the numbers we're putting in front of you are actual numbers. It's gonna come to a halt as far as spending as we enter into June 30th. So the numbers, we're confident when we can tell you these are the numbers. And I think you've seen this year after year with sheriff's budgets and superintendent budgets, in that while we may present a deficit budget to you, it's never ended up a deficit budget here. I struggle to keep the ending fund balance down. And I think we're seeing this is again the second collective bargaining agreement with the licensed staff. That was a big investment. It needed to be a big investment just to get us to the middle level in order to keep up with what's going on with the rest of the state as far as some of the collective bargaining agreements. Being able to go back and make some adjustments through attrition with staffing to be able to afford that and to set us up for success going into 27, 28.
Right, you just tend your emotions.
I move that the budget committee of the Pleasant Hill School District number 1 approve the budget for the 2026-27 fiscal year in the amount of $32,029,643 for all funds. This represents a general fund total of $21,668,177, a special revenue fund total of $9,166,466. Debt service fund total of $1,795,000. I'll second.
Great, it's been moved and seconded, all in favor?
I,
Aye. All opposed?
Opposed.
Right. Favor. Then approved. The motion carries and the proposed 2026-2027 budget is approved by the budget committee. Thank you to the committee, staff, and community for your participation in this process. There's gonna be-
you make a second motion.
Oh, sorry. So I don't know who made me the chairperson.
I move that the budget committee approve property taxes for the 2026-27 fiscal year at the rate of $4.64 and some 1/14 per 1,000 of assessed value for the permanent rate tax levy, and then the amount of $1,732,642 for the debt service levy.
Alright. It's been moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, no, wait for. The motion carries. The proposed 2026-2027 budget has been approved by the budget committee. Thank you to the committee staff and community for your participation in this process. If there is no other further business before the committee, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good work, Mal, you're the right person for the job.
Yeah.
Alright. I am going to reconvene the regular, board meeting. Point one, board bench calendar, yeah, thanks, sir.
Yeah, to me, it's actually almost over. We've got the Education Foundation meeting, agenda signed up for, but it's been moved from Thursday, May 21st to Wednesday, May 27th, still at 6 o'clock here at the community center. And then we've got, graduation on June 5th, 7 o'clock at the city. We're running out of, events.
Yes, that's good, I don't know.
I'll come back.
Alright. Thanks, Leo. Any other business from anyone? No? Alright, next board meeting. Yeah, June 1st. And with that, we're adjourned.
Don't forget to vote.
Already good.